Summer and all things patriotic just seem to go together. So today I'm going to take a few things I picked up at the Dollar Tree and make a sign for on my porch. These two things I picked up here I'm going to be taking apart. And then I had this piece of wood over here that I had cut a bunch of pine boards down into for making some trays, and I'm going to use this. I had previously stained this with a dark walnut and went over it with Crystalax paint called Universal White. So the first thing I'm going to do is sand this down. I'm going to grab my sanding block and some 120 grit sandpaper. I'm just going to cut this down so that I can wrap it around that sanding block. This is how I just prefer to do it. I get a better grip of the sandpaper, and then I'm going to take it over there and just sand it down to give it that distressed, worn out look. So then all I'm going to do is just really put a lot of pressure on this because I really do want to get a lot of this white paint off so that I can see that dark stain color underneath. You can just do it as much or as little as you want. It really just is kind of your preference here. And I also am going to flip this over and do the back side because you never know what the lines are actually going to look like, but you can just leave one side fully painted if you prefer. When you're done sanding this, you're just going to want to take a damp, lint-free rag and wipe off all that paint dust just so that you have a nice clean surface to work on. And then I'm going to set this aside and start pulling apart these Dollar Tree hangers. The Dollar Tree has a lot of different patriotic type 4th of July signs this year, and these are the two that I grabbed for this project. Now I'm going to start with the USA one, and at first I thought about just cutting off this burlap ribbon, but then I decided I might be using it later on in this project. So I took my flat nose screwdriver and just popped out those staples and put this ribbon to the side. And for this piece, it was super easy just to pop off this tape and ribbon. There was a little bit of glue residue on the backs of these, so I just went ahead with that same sandpaper around my sanding block and just sanded off the backs. I knew that these papers on the front were going to be a little more difficult to peel off, so I just left them the way they were since they were going to be completely hidden. And now for the fun part. This paper on this USA sign, these little wooden, whatever type of material you want to call it, was not easy to get off. This stuff was kind of a pain and it took me a long time. In the end, I ended up getting off as much as I could, and then I took it and yes, you guessed it, I hit it with the sandpaper. That just kind of flattened it all off, and I really didn't want paper peeling up underneath the paint when I was done with this, so I really wanted to get off as much as I could. Unlike these square pieces, I could not just flip these over and use the back because the S would have been backwards. There was no good way to turn that around. Hey, if we haven't met yet, my name is Sarah and I love doing all the crafts, whether it's these Dollar Tree DIYs for making fun things out of other things you can pick up at the Dollar Tree, or making crafts with my Cricut, or even making custom tumblers and keychains. I just love to do all the things. So go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss out on what we do next. So here, after I laid out where I wanted all the pieces to go, I grabbed that top square and am painting it blue. Here I have Waverly chalk paint in, I believe this is the ocean blue color. I was going more for the faded flag look with this blue. I didn't really want it to look like a brand new flag, maybe one that's been flying for a while, so it's got that sun fade to it, and this color seemed to do the trick. For the bottom two squares, I'm going to paint these white, and here I have Anne Sloan chalk paint in white. It's just what I had on hand, so that is what I am using. And I just go ahead and give each piece of these a good coat all along the sides and the top. I'm not too concerned if it gets complete coverage because, like I said, I wanted to go for more of the worn out, faded flag look. So I'm just going to cover up both of these. Now as I finish up these white pieces, you'll see the USA letters suddenly just turned brown. I totally forgot to record what I did here. So as you can see, I have a container of stain that is dark walnut, and I ended up going over that later. As you can see where those parts of the paper didn't come off, it doesn't look good. So I set those aside for a while and went and put a second coat of this blue paint on, and then I will move on to the white pieces. Now back to the white squares. I'm going to take some painter's tape and mark off where I want my red stripes to go, or rather where I don't want them to go. I want to keep those parts white, so I'm going to use a little piece just as a good marker between my strips. And then I am actually going to go over all of this one more time with the white paint. Hopefully that will help with the red bleed underneath, and then I will continue on with the red paint. Now while I waited for the paint to dry, I headed over to Creative Fabrica, where I get almost all of my fonts and graphics. And I found a graphic that was specifically made for like porch signs. And this one I found is, it says Home of the Brave, and I thought that was perfect for this USA sign. If you guys haven't been to Creative Fabrica yet, you have got to go check it out. That is my #1 go-to place when I am looking for something. Oftentimes I will take several different graphics into Canva and create something completely different, and then I take it over to my Cricut design space where then I can cut out my design. The reason why I like doing that versus using Cricut design space to design everything is because you can't take it out of Cricut design space. So I just prefer to do it this way, but you do you. I'll leave a link down below for Creative Fabrica if you want to go check it out. They always have really great deals going on. I believe right now you can get like a month for free, and then after that it's only $9 a month. And once you guys see what they all have on there, you'll know why I love it so much, and that is such a great deal. And here I also cut out some white stars, and I'm using my paper transfer. It's just less sticky so that it doesn't peel up the paint when I take it off. And I'm just going to randomly kind of place these on here where I think it will work. They will be covered up a little bit by the U, but I'm okay with that. And then I'm just going to attach these down. Back to the red and white striped squares, I'm taking this Waverly chalk paint. I think it's in crimson, and I'm just going over those parts that I wanted red and just making sure I get decent coverage. Again, I'm going for the worn out faded flag so it doesn't have to be perfect. And I am going to peel these up pretty quickly just so that the paint doesn't stick to the tape and then rip it off funny. As you will notice on one of them, I do get a little tiny bit of bleed, but I can fix that pretty easily just by going over it with some white paint again. After I get the paint removed, I just place these on the board just to see about where I would like them, and then kind of gauge where they should be and where the letters should be, making sure it just kind of all looks right. And then I decided this needs a little bit more dimension to it. So I grabbed a box of those tumbling blocks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to put a few of these underneath the blue and white one and the bottom red and white one, just to give it a little height and make it kind of pop out a little bit more. After I kind of look at where all that's going to be placed, and this is really just wherever you think it looks best. Obviously there's no rhyme or reason to this. I just move all this back to the side so that I can now go ahead and place down the vinyl for my stencil of Home of the Brave. Now for the stencil, I used permanent vinyl, and I just have a huge roll of this white stuff, guys. It's just cheaper to buy it in bulk online. And I take some more of that paper transfer tape, and I'm going to stick this down to the board. And I could have been a little more careful with my placement. I probably should have left the backing on that until I had it kind of placed where I wanted it, but I didn't. And it's a little bit crooked, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. It's just for on my porch. And then I carefully peel off this paper transfer, and it all comes off pretty quickly and easily, and it's not peeling any of that paint from underneath, which is why I use it. I make sure that I burnish this down good, and then I use this clear spray paint to seal it so that it doesn't get any bleed with the paint underneath. Now, as you can see, I am going over the letters with just some brown paint. I think this is like an espresso color, and I just really wanted to cover up all where that paper didn't come off. It didn't really work very well with the stain, so I'm just going to give these a good coat, and then they will be good to go. For my Home of the Brave stencil, I'm going to be using a charcoal colored acrylic paint, and I'm using just a simple makeup sponge here, and I'm just gently dabbing over the letters. You don't want to use a brush because even though there are 2 layers of spray paint over this, you could still cause some lifting of the vinyl, and then it could just get some of the bleeding underneath, which we don't want. So carefully dab over all of your open spaces. On this one, I went all the way down, and then I just re-dabbed the same paint that was there just because it looked a little bit bubbly and it just kind of flattened it all out a little bit better. Next, I'm going to peel up this vinyl, and you guys, I was so surprised how easily this came up because it is permanent vinyl and it does have 2 layers of spray paint on. Now, after I spray painted it, I got busy and it actually sat overnight. So this vinyl, I was concerned that it maybe wasn't going to want to come up, but it came up really easily, and I just slowly peeled it up from top to bottom right after I was finished painting. I didn't let that paint dry at all. It came right off after I was done. And then I go back in with my weeding tool and I just pick out all those little pieces, being careful not to rub over the paint or leave a bunch of scratches in the wood. Because some of these pieces were super tiny, I do have a very little tweezers in my hand here that is just helping me to grab the corners so that I could peel them up a little bit easier. Now when that is done, I take these squares and I kind of play around a little bit with where I think that they should go. And then I am going to grab some of those tumbling tower blocks that I mentioned earlier just to raise up the top and the bottom squares here. And I really do like that a lot better. It gives it some more dimension. And the way I'm going to attach these is I'm going to take those tower blocks and I'm going to add a little bit of E6000 and a little bit of hot glue. Now the E6000 is going to give it that long-lasting hold, where the hot glue is just going to give it a really fast hold. And then I just repeat that process on the tops of the blocks to attach these boards as well. And then I'm just going to continue with that process all the way down and attach everything with the E6000 and the hot glue, because I don't want this falling apart. I don't plan on taking this apart to use for different pieces later. I want it all to stay down really well, as this is probably going to go on my front porch. And again, with these letters, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now, I probably didn't need to go all the way up to the corners, as some of them just hung over the edges, but that's fine. Whatever. It worked really good, and these things aren't going anywhere. These are definitely 2 things that every crafter should have in their craft room, the E6000 and hot glue. If you are a beginner to crafting, or you maybe just want to see what I keep as staples in my craft room, you can go ahead and grab a link down below. I'll have a free craft room checklist down there that you can grab and just see what I like to have on hand. This sign is almost done, but we are going to pull it together with just a messy bow. So I found this pack of ribbon at Michael's, and I think it was even like half off already for the season. And I'm just going to grab some random pieces here from the red, white, and blue and just stack them up on top of each other and just really play around with this until it's something that I like. There is no rhyme or reason to this. Like I said, it's a messy bow. You just kind of keep going until you're satisfied. After you're happy with what it looks like, I'm just going to grab some of this jute twine that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to give it a couple wrap-arounds here, and then I'm going to tie it off in a little tiny knot, and I'm going to secure it with some hot glue. Now I'm going to grab that burlap ribbon that I pulled off of the USA sign from the beginning, and I'm going to use that as just a backing to this bow, just to kind of make it stand out a little bit better, have a bigger background to it. And I'm going to glue that down with the hot glue and then place this bow on the top of it. When this is attached with the hot glue, I'm just going to go around with my scissors and clip off any of the weird looking ends and just kind of play around with it until I'm satisfied with the way that it looks. And there you have it. I think this turned out really cute, and as much as I want to put it on my front porch, I think I might sneak it onto my cousin's porch, because if anyone is brave, it is him. He is former Navy, current police officer, and a volunteer firefighter. So you guys, he has done it all, and I'm just super proud of him, and I love just gifting the little things that I make, and I'm pretty sure this would make him and his family smile and be super happy.